Are some women traumatized from childbirth? Let's talk about it on today's episode.
Why do we not talk about the trauma that happens as a result of childbirth? I've definitely spoken to friends, to patients who have traumatic responses to their childbirth experiences. And I feel like this is one of the things that we don't really talk about. So we're going to talk about it because ain't nobody else talking about it. So we are not afraid to talk about it. We're going to talk about it this evening. So have you
Mhm.
guys heard from, either from your personal stories or from people that you know, that women who have been traumatized by their childbirth experiences?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you share if you can?
Oh, do I want to share mine?
Or just, you can be general,
Well,
but
by looking at stuff and researching and looking at YouTube and stuff, so many people had bad trauma. So I would say mine wasn't that bad of a trauma, but I did see some trauma there.
mm,
And research shows too, it shows like um, the experience that you had in birth, uh, if it was real bad and everything physically, if you had a bad uh, childhood, like if you got physically abused, sexually, whatever, it kind of triggers off something and it makes you don't want to talk about nothing. So
mm,
I kind of I kind of experienced that, but not really in a
uh-huh.
way because also like after having my second child and having the medication I had wear off, oh my gosh, that was like I think that's why my last two
We
is like
remember
five and
fighting the
a half.
dragon with
Yeah.
the dragon.
The last two, they were 5.5 years apart. My goal was 3 years
Uh-huh.
in between every kid, but that that was yeah. And I realized my son, he swallowed his birth fluids and everything.
Hmm.
By me being so young and everything, I knew that my child was supposed to, get clean right after they, exit out into the world. But however, it took about 30 minutes to an hour before a nurse came to clean my baby. And in between that, they put him on me. I breastfed and he swallowed his birth fluids and everything. So the next day after, still trying to feed him as a mother that's breastfeeding, um, you hear you got to breastfeed every 2 hours. I'm like, my baby's not latching on. My baby's not eating. Let's give him a bottle. They had to put a tube down his throat to take the birth fluids out. And I was very sad to leave the hospital without my child. He was there for like 3 days. So yeah.
Mm. How did you respond? How do you think that level of trauma affected you? In what
Oh,
way?
that level of trauma affected me because, in my childhood was parts of it wasn't so good. So
Hmm.
leaving someone that you love so much, or you just meet and you loving them so much, just to leave without them, that was very bad. I honestly cried that night. I couldn't really sleep knowing that I brought, a human being in this world and he's there all alone. Like he don't have mommy. I know how it feels to not have mommy all the time. That I want mommy. That's what kids, when they come into this world, they want who? Mommy. Sad to say,
Right.
they don't want daddy, but they want mommy. Mommy is the
Right.
nurture. So,
Right. That's an
yeah.
interesting perspective because yeah, there's trauma both ways, right? Like if you have previous trauma, it can be unmasked by labor. And if you have an unpleasant childbirth experience, it can then produce trauma. Why don't we talk about this topic? Why is it so taboo?
I think um I think a lot of people want to stick to this feeling of, well, at least you're alive and the baby's alive. It's that, well, at least you made it through, kind of brushing it under the rug and brushing the experiences. I mean, I also feel like there's a bit of of women just not being heard. Like our
Mm.
thoughts, our opinions, our feelings don't quite matter in a world that has us very sexualized. Like our job is just to give birth, like whatever. If it was good or bad, whatever, you gave birth, that's what you need to do. And you know what? I'm gonna see you in another year to give another, it's just like repetitive. It's not, there's not a care or a love for us in this world as women, unfortunately. And of course, as women of color, it becomes even more magnified.
Mhm.
They bred us in slavery. It was not a divine moment of creation. It was like, yeah, give me another animal to use, right? But
Right.
it's interesting though, because what I'm finding, like literally looking up, birth trauma, just did a Google search,
Mhm.
and I will find Birth Traumas Association of UK. I would find Birth Traumas Association of Australia. You don't find like that in the United States.
We know that because Eunice and I started to look it up at the way beginning. Yes, and I remember that. Yes, Dr. Trissa, you don't find
Uh,
the U.S. based articles.
nope. You don't find even US based organizations that have that. So it's like here, it's like whatever. You had the kid. Okay, well, go ahead. There's nothing else to be said about it. Don't know why.
Mm, that's
I
a
don't know. I feel like I talked about it to whoever would listen forever to this day.
Yes, yes, please.
I mean, I'm just kind of think like, you know what it is. And my mom told me this a lot. She's like, people lied. She's like, you know, she's like, people
Yes.
lie. She's like,
I
people
love
lie.
your
Everybody
mom.
wants to do this like amazing thing. Oh, I'm a mom. I never knew love. She's like, people lie, girl. It's hard. And most of the time it's rough. Like and 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 I didn't believe her because I was like, there's something wrong with me. I'm broken. Like the trauma was so rough for me. Um, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't get over it. And then there was like the guilt and, and also people's comments, people being like, because I complained a lot, especially in my first pregnancy, every little thing. I was like, this is so rough. My daughter had me emotionally all messed up. And I remember a friend, he was like, God, you're really struggling. He was like, my wife didn't complain that much. And he's like, or maybe it was rough, but she just didn't complain like you did. I was like, so people had like a lot, the whole experience for me is traumatic. And so now I tell women that of course it's traumatic. You literally pushed a human being out of your body. You
Right.
literally had to open up, whether it is vaginal or cesarean. You literally had to literally part for this being to come into the world. And I think that in the United States, or maybe all around the world, because like Dr. Trissa said, women are really minimalized in a way. And I'm in a course right now for midwives, for traditional midwives, because something that I realized I was missing in birth. That's why I left the hospital mainly, is I was really missing the ceremony of birth. We have lost the
Mhm.
ceremony of it all,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
sacred act of it all, and treating women like they have gone through a sacred act. You know what I mean? Like this, like you said, the response of, well, at least your baby's alive. The thing that matters the most is that your baby's okay. And you're like, yes, but now how do we heal this mother? How do we bring her back together so that she's a whole being when she brings another person into this world? And like, we're the ones reproducing here.
Right.
And so we just perpetuate this thing, and the ceremony of it is gone. So that's actually what I'm learning right now as a midwife, even more, is learning how to bring ceremony back to the sacred practice, and then teaching women so that they can accept the ceremony of the sacred practice. Because a lot of women are like, I don't want to do that. If you're like, make sure you're wrapped and don't step on the floor with, everything everybody's mamas and grandmamas told, put something on your head, don't step outside, don't let the cold air get you, all of that. A lot of women also aren't interested, right? So it's like, how do we bring that back?
Maybe that's why we have such disregard for human life, because we don't even celebrate its entry into the world. And so perhaps that's why, as we get older, it's so easy to have mass shootings. It's so easy to have domestic violence. It's so easy to have child abuse because we just don't
Well,
value life to begin with.
go ahead, Dr. T. Go ahead. You may have a point right there. You may have a huge point right there. It's not valued at the most. At no point in time is it seen to be valued. So it's like it's almost like a commodity. It's
Mhm.
another thing that can just be bought, paid for, whatever the case may be. Didn't think
Mhm.
about it that way.
It's
Yeah.
it's so sad. You're right. I feel like traditionally, I'm Caribbean by background. I feel like birth is used to be much more celebrated, and now it's just like, oh, it's another one, on to the next one. Even in the hospitals, I feel like women feel that way. At least that's some of the feedback I get, that they feel like they're just another one in the lineup. And I love the fact that people are including in their birth plan, sort of making their rooms their own, so that they can have a more celebratory experience and feel like they're just not another woman giving birth, but that there is value to the process that they're entering into and value to the child that they're bringing into the world. What are some of the areas that you feel, maybe some of the reasons why people feel traumatized?
Oh, the pain. The
Uncontrolled pain.
pain,
No,
Amen.
that's
the
Amen.
real. That's
pain,
Everyone.
the
real.
thoughts, the pain,
That's
the
real.
thoughts that they have, and that's triggering when you have a pain like from, if you can remember a certain pain that you had when you was in your childhood and it came back and you were like, ooh, that was familiar. Like, that's deja
Mm,
vu. I
that's
seen
deep,
that before.
Sharon. Mhm.
So you be all like, you think on that. And then like you said, like Olivia said, you complain so much, you don't want to, complain so much and then be like, she just gonna complain anyway. Let's just bypass what she said. She gonna complain
Mhm.
anyway. So
So we getting
what's the point?
are we getting desensitized to women's pain in labor?
Oh,
I believe so.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
Olivia. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was I
Like
was told
Olivia's
I
laughing too hard.
I was
Uh,
told after I gave birth, your mom and your grandmother and all the women before you did it and had multiples, and you're over here tripping over one. Like basically, like shut up, stop complaining, stop whining. You're being a baby. I
Wow.
was
I,
told that by a family member.
I 1,000% agree.
Wow.
Yeah, I have had patients who have said similarly to you, Eunice, that they've been told by family members, sometimes the partner, that yeah, that they need to just endure. That's crazy.
Wow.
And the thing
I
about it
mean, but
too,
isn't that what we tell women all the time? And about so many things, you just endure. You take it. You endure. I
yeah,
mean,
menstrual pain, yes,
yeah,
yes, we
everything.
do.
I mean, everything.
Mhm.
And what causes trauma? Like Karen said, the pain, the loss of control. I mean, that's also very triggering. You have absolutely no control. And when you feel that, the fear, I mean, let's be clear, it feels like you're going to die. Okay. That's your natural instinct.
Yes.
You're like, Lord
Yeah,
Jesus, just take me. I'm about to die. Like,
Feels gut wrenching. I
right.
felt like they were ripping my insides from the
yes.
back to the front. It felt like this just somebody was literally crushing my back. I was having labor pains in my back. I
Mm.
I felt like my body was being torn from my pelvis down. It was debilitating. I was screaming, and literally the person that was there with me was of no support.
Right.
Mm.
Just
And I
looking
think
at me,
that's
That
the
staring
thing,
at me in
right,
pain.
Eunice? Like
What?
I think that's the thing too. It's like we don't raise our women to understand what birth is going to be, what it's going to feel like, so that you then have the support and don't go in so afraid, because you're never going to know what it feels like. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like they say, like some indigenous cultures, they know it's going to be work, they know it's going to be pain, but they don't actually experience pain like the way we do. Like they go into it like head in the game, we got this. And so sometimes I wonder if it's the way we raise our women to like understand what labor and birth actually is.
Mhm.
It is. It is. I totally agree with you. It is because even right now, my daughter is 15. She's about to be 16. And I'm a mother that I'm real with my daughter. I tell her about any and everything. A lot of conversations that we have as women and everything. And I'm all like, you gotta think on this. And you gotta, be careful on this and everything. But in reality, you're gonna have your own experience. I let her know. My experience was my experience. Yours not gonna be similar. It might be harder, it might be not. So I'm just gonna let you know this is how this road go if you go through this and everything. Even I told her about us, talking about having our kids at an early age or after a certain age. She was like, oh, well, I was gonna be like doing my life for like 10 years. And then I started in my 30s, but I didn't really want to have no kids till I was like 35 because I was going to have a boyfriend. I was like, girl, you just got a whole life to let life get you, baby. Let life get
Yeah.
you. Because once you turn a
I,
certain age, it's gonna get you.
I think you raised a really interesting point, Karen, because I do think that women make it harder for other women. There are women, let's be
Yes.
honest, there are women who go through very relatively easier, I'm not gonna
Easy.
say easy, they
Yes.
have easier experiences, and there is
Yeah.
this bar that's raised that every other woman should reach that same bar because their experience seemed like nothing. Whereas people don't realize like your pain perception, your pain experience, your labor experience may be completely different. And so, yes, you may be
Yes.
blessed to have a very rapid labor course where everything is, the birds are chirping and it's beautiful and it's uncomplicated and
You
your
push
pain feels like
twice.
nothing. It feels like you may be having mild cramps. Like there are women who say labor feels like mild cramps, but bless their hurts. But that's not everybody.
That was me.
I don't even
That
have
was not me.
I don't even have mild cramps when I'm on my cycle.
I can't say Barbara's talking
I've
about
been
her
having
cycle.
painful periods my whole life.
That
But no,
part,
one
that
thing
part.
I can't say, I do enjoy after having my first or second one. I don't know, but I don't get cramps no more. I don't get no more cramps.
Yeah, and there are
Cramps is
women, and
my body cramps.
it's the same thing. There are women who do not have cramps ever. And so they can't relate to women who are
Mm-hmm.
debilitated by their cramps. And I wish
Mm-hmm.
we as women would give grace to each other and be more
Yes.
understanding to each other. Because if we can't
Yeah.
be understanding to each other, how are you going to expect a
How
guy
are
who
we gonna
has
expect
no clue,
any?
no
Yep.
reference? He doesn't even know what a cramp is. How are we going to
Yeah.
get them to give us grace and to be sympathetic and empathetic towards our the experience of being a woman if we can't do the same for each other?
And
And
I
we
think
need
that's
that
part of the
build
big
up.
problem.
No,
Go ahead.
go what you say.
I was saying, I think that's part of the biggest problem. It's that we as women aren't supported. So like one of the things that I think is a or I would say is a bit effective in terms of like the trauma experience is that support system. Having birth and labor be so medicalized and institutionalized almost, and like Olivia was talking about, like removing the ceremony from it, but also just removing the community and the base. And I know, yes, not every situation do you want everybody up in your face as you're going through, but
Or up in
kind
your
of
that part.
all of that, all of it. But
Right.
you don't get as much of that support. And like I was there for my sister when she delivered, and it was the father, my other sister, and myself that was in with her. And, she did a great job. She went through it. Didn't seem too bad. We made big jokes that if that's what it was like, hey, we can have a couple. She looked real good. But it felt good to be able to be there and support her. And she knew that, there are people there that were like on her side and helping her out or whatever. We didn't have to do much advocating or anything for her, like in terms of her being there. But I feel like that becomes a little bit of a limitation. There's not as much of that. It's like we're starting to break down the community. Everybody's kind of busy and everybody's doing their own thing. And you may have the spouse and the mother that's delivering, but you don't have as much of that like communal support. And I think that
Yeah.
becomes really important.
Yeah, and you know what's
Yeah.
interesting that I think too? Go ahead, Eunice.
No, I was gonna say I just read. So to add to what Dr. T said, Dr. said
Dr. Trisha.
she's right. Yeah, Dr. Trista, yeah, she's right. She makes a good point because I think that what is probably missing in a lot of communities, especially in like this society, is the lack of women support, like the village, like the concept of like it takes a village. I was just reading the other day on a post that one woman wrote, and I think she was a black midwife. She said what's lacking is the women are still they're mourning the lack of support from other women in the community that our ancestors had. The lack of other aunties and women in the family that would come together when there was a child being born, and that women to this day we're still wishing and hoping that we would get that, and we don't have that. And that's why so many women are experiencing, I think a lot of depression and anxiety is
Yeah.
because we don't feel supported.
Don't feel taken
I,
care of. The aunties
yeah,
to come and take care of
Yeah.
you.
I just remember when I was young, like it would always be like my aunties and my grandma and the cousin, and it was just always women around, a bunch of women. And my experience, I can't speak for other women's experience, but when I had my daughter 5.5 years ago, I was very isolated. I was alone. Like my mom wasn't around because she was working. My aunties were working. Like it just felt a disconnect. Like I just really longed for sisterhood and like elders to be around me and kind of guide me. Like I had to pay somebody to come and check on me and do things for me that I just assume would be part of the experience of giving birth. It was sad.
Yeah, there's something to be said for the loss of tradition. And I think this is what I see often. Like I have patients who come in and we have the discussion about what their pain management is going to be. And I ask them, what do you want? And they're going to say, oh, I don't want to use any pain medication, which I think is great. But then I ask them the question, so what are you using? And they look at me like, I just said I'm not going to use no pain medication. So I think the loss of tradition also is having this disconnect with, yeah, traditional culture, they did not use pain medication, but they were preparing
Yes.
otherwise. And so
Yes.
they were able to, whether it's through meditative practices, through their different types of therapeutic practices, is
Yes.
what they use to be able to tolerate labor
Yeah.
without conventional medication. It wasn't all or nothing. And so I
Right.
think there's this misconception that traditional cultures didn't do anything. They just didn't take medication, didn't do anything. No, that's not true. There were practices that were orally taught from one generation to the next. And we have lost that. And we have women who are going through labor with nothing, not prepared, no type of therapeutic measures. They don't know how to breathe. They don't even know that they need to know this information,
Right.
and then they end up having these extremely traumatic experiences because
Yes.
they took their breath away, literally. So I think
Well, what about,
mhm.
I was gonna say, what about the women who do prepare and who even have like these lovely births and are still traumatized? Because I've seen a couple of those,
Let's
you
talk about
know?
it.
Yeah, where it's like, maybe things didn't go as planned or things went exactly as planned. I attended this beautiful birth a few weeks, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Mhm.
Honey, it was her fifth baby. You would not have known that she was like, I mean, she was handling it like I was questioning myself, was she in labor? Okay. Like that. I was like, is she, isn't she, is she, isn't she? And she
Mhm.
did it so slowly, so beautifully. And she gives birth and it's beautiful. I'm thinking it's beautiful, honey. There's like Christian music playing in the background. It's like candles. I was like, oh, that's
Love
beautiful.
it.
And I come back 24 hours to ask her how she felt about her experience.
Mhm.
And she said it was the hardest thing she's ever done in her life. She was like, I was scared. She was like, at one point, I was about to be like, I can't do this. I'm dying. Take me to the hospital. And I'm like, what? And she said that she just knelt down in the tub and asked God. She was like, God, you're going to have to get me through this. Tell me what I have to do. And she said she heard God say, get up and go to the bathroom, like get up and walk around. She got up, went to the bathroom. She said she was so scared because the pain was so intense. And she's telling me this, and I'm like, where was I? Because that's not what she
Because
was.
that's not what I saw.
That's not what she was exhibiting, honey. I thought she was Zen, okay? And she said I was so scared. And then she gave birth on her bed. It was beautiful, and it was just like beautiful. And she said she thought she was gonna die. She said she was so incredibly afraid, and she was a little traumatized by the fear, the pain. It was her first time having a home birth, her first time having an unmedicated birth. So it's her first time feeling all of those things. And you would have never known. She was completely acting like it was an easy birth, right?
Mm.
And but she still had some trauma. So I've seen these women, and I think there is. So in the natural birthing, there's trauma. Now, if you're talking about hospital birth, I think there's trauma because a lot of other things, because of the way we manipulate women's bodies, because of the way we
Like,
take women's control away, the way we treat them like they're just there for display, and everybody's coming in and everybody's sampling. It's like, what in the hell? This is crazy.
yes, those repeated pelvic exams from everybody.
Oh,
Everybody's doing the pelvic exam.
everybody walking in and out while you're spread eagle and bleeding. And like, what is that? What is that?
Right. Yes, yes.
So
Go ahead, Dr. Trista.
going back to what Olivia was saying, so she had that projection of that strong, I'm going to say Black woman, I don't know, but she almost had that projection of that strong Black woman, like she needed to mask everything.
Mhm.
Are we bringing that into the labor conversation where
Yeah.
we feel like we need to hold up this front and look like we are not frail and fragile as we're doing this? Are we bringing that into play? And now that is causing us to be traumatized because we're not even able to be honest and free and open in a time like this when you are at your most bare. So it's coming back a little bit to almost like, I would say, mental health. Like, what is it? What is that mantle that we carry with us as women, and especially Black women, that makes us feel like we absolutely have to present at all times?
That we're in control.
That's such a
That
That we're
good
we're in.
point.
not vulnerable.
That's such a good point. And she was Latina, but I see what you mean. And I also wonder if it's like the pressure of I should be good at this or I should know what I'm doing.
Yes,
You
there
know,
is.
I've
Yes.
had babies, or I
That's
want to
part
have a
of
home
it.
birth,
Yes.
a natural birth,
That
and
we're
I'm gonna do
supposed to
this.
know
Like,
what to do because we're women. It's gonna come natural to us. Like we're just
yeah.
supposed to have this revelation at birth. Like, oh no, what
Right.
the hell?
And mind you, without the investment of helping women to prepare, right? So
Right.
we want the outcome without investing the time, the effort, the resources needed so that women have a as beautiful a birth as we can. I think there's a lot of fantasizing about what birth is supposed to be like. You know, you can kind of tell when people are
and and
fantasizing.
and Dr. T helping women afterwards. So with women
Yes,
who do have trauma, where is the ceremony and the culture to help it not become long-term trauma? Right?
let's
You can
talk
have
about
trauma
that.
when you
How
fall
do
in.
how do you think it manifests long term? Like, what do you think happens to a woman who's been traumatized that's not addressed
Well,
from
you know,
childhood?
you
No
get
help.
Mm.
perinatal mood
PTSD.
disorders and you end up killing babies. Like it can spiral out of control very quickly. You know,
That goes back
hormones.
to the community that
Yeah,
she said, our community, we need help.
yeah.
It takes a village to raise these kids and to make us back better than what it is. So it is a community thing that we need, not, family, close friends, whatnot, which
Mhm.
I'm so happy right now in this state that I have a friend right now that's, this is her first birth, although she has so much, things in her head that she wants to do, which is totally fine because making your own thing. But I'm so glad I'm here to help and to give her this advice and be there not only during this pregnancy, but after too, and more to come if she decides to have more. So
Yeah. I think
yeah,
I think that's awesome that she has you there.
yeah.
Because a lot of women don't say anything. They don't, we're not supposed to be vulnerable. And certainly
Mhm.
you already feel pressure,
Mhm.
especially from expectations of you as a mother. And so you're trying, this is like the first round, right? This is proof, you have to prove that you're a good mother by being able to
Mhm.
tolerate labor. And it's such high bars.
It's like a rite of
Mhm.
passage. You're supposed to have this rite of passage of like I don't understand. I'm traumatized. I don't want no more kids because of that. I failed miserably. I was complaining. I was screaming. I was crying. I was not happy. I hated it.
Yeah.
My birth plan went to hell. The nurse looked at me crazy with the paper when I came into the hospital. Like, what is this birth girl by? Like, it just epidural, pitocin. No, no, it was not fun. Nobody cared what I had to say or what I felt or what I was thinking. It was
And
not fun.
do you guys,
Dr. T, let's
uh,
talk about it. How is it when a lot of ladies come in when they give birth? When you did help push out the babies, how was that? Did they come in with lists that you seen?
with birth plans, you mean specifically?
Yes, the birth plan. Yes.
Oh, yes. So if you guys want to find out what I think about birth plans, watch our next episode. You'll find out as we talk about birth plans. Yes. So birth plans are interesting. And we're going to hold that thought for our next episode on birth plans.
Okay.
We're going to talk about it because Karen, it is quite controversial from the medical side to the midwifery side to the doula side to the patient side. Birth plans are mm,
I'll just say
Controversial
this.
is right.
I'll just say this. If I ever had
we
another
gonna
one,
talk about it.
I'm not typing anything up next time. I'm keeping not typing.
We gonna talk about it. We gonna talk about it because yes, birth plans. It's do we have a system that welcomes and make birth plans practical? Like we haven't touched that part yet. So birth plans are great, but what system do we have, and does that system practically allow for birth plans to be done? And we'll talk about what I mean by that at the next episode. But it sounds like so far we've said that women experience trauma as a result of unexpected pain or uncontrolled pain. And we've talked about the disparities in how Black women in particular and women of color are not well controlled or do not have good pain control in general. So giving birth is no exception to that. We've talked about the interruptions and the lack of sensitivity to the process and the lack of celebration of the birth experience. The fact that women are getting, sometimes especially in teaching hospitals, multiple pelvic exams by various people, some who have great bedside manner and others that are just like spread eagle, especially when things are traumatic. And we feel that, sometimes we forget that even when things are urgent, in that urgency, yes, you can still be humane to a woman. You can still give her a little bit of control, even in that urgent situation where maybe a fetal heart may be decreasing, you're trying to assess the baby. Still be able to incorporate that humanity in the care of a woman. And I think also one of you touched on the fact that unexpected outcomes, you know and Karen shared her experience with that unexpected outcomes. I thought my baby was going to be healthy. I expected myself to be healthy. Now I got a postpartum hemorrhage and I'm hospitalized. Now I'm getting blood transfusion. Now I can't see my baby because I had a C-section that had complications, and the baby can't come to me because I have a fever or the baby has a fever. Unexpected outcomes. Babies being in NICU, leaving the hospital, either baby leak goes home first or mom goes home first, traumatized, right? And why don't we assess women for this? Why are we asking women, how was your birth experience?
I
Because
think
they
it's
need to
because
speak out.
I think this is not normalized. I don't think it's a normalized conversation. It's still very stigmatized. I don't think that I mean, trauma is a trendy word these days,
Right.
and trauma gets a bad rep,
Yeah.
And I just think that for a lot of women, like it's kind of shameful. And I mean, probably Olivia can speak to this too, and you, Dr. T too, Dr. Moore, because women are supposed to embrace giving birth and being mothers and caregivers. And for you as a woman to say, well, this wasn't a pleasant experience, this was actually a very unpleasant and I didn't enjoy this, there's some shame that comes with it. And I can only speak for myself because I felt a lot of shame for not enjoying being pregnant, for not enjoying the birth, for actually after giving birth feeling very out of my body. It took me such a long time to feel connected to my body again. I felt like I was in a foreign body after giving birth. I felt very broken. My body felt like it was disfigured in some kind of way. Like I would touch myself vaginally because I had stitches, and it felt like it just didn't make sense. Like, why did all this happen to me? How did it happen to me? Like, I was trying to make sense of why I felt so out of place.
While trying to take care of a human being.
Right. Who
I
was
had
fully
nobody,
dependent on you.
and I had nobody to talk to in the beginning, like there was really nobody there. And if I would call my mom or my sister, they would be like, oh, it's okay. Okay, it's okay. You'll feel better. Like they were trying to help me, but I just, I was trying to make sense of it, I guess.
Well, I'm gonna kind of chime in. I can honestly say, and I've had conversations with different people. So I do not find my birth experience to be traumatic. I actually felt really good about my experience, despite the fact that it absolutely did not go the way I wanted it. Ended up with a C-section when that was in no way, shape, or form what I wanted. I had to be induced because I was 40 plus and all the other good stuff. But and to add on that, I was having an acute asthma exacerbation and really couldn't breathe. So after having had the C-section and I'm still numb from my diaphragm down, I'm trying to ask them for the albuterol and they're not paying me any attention because they're like, oh, okay, she's okay. And I'm whispering, can I get my albuterol, please? Because that's about all the air I can pass out. But in general, it was still, it was still, I found it to be an amazing experience. And so one of the things, like I'm coming on the tail end of this, yes, there is birth trauma, and you're gonna have people that experience it from cesarean section or from vaginal deliveries, whatever the case may be. But I do want to say we have to be mindful that we don't put our own impressions on somebody else. Meaning, just because it didn't go the way that they wanted to, don't always assume that it was traumatic for them. Because I've kind of had that almost pushed on me, where it's like well-intentioned folks are wanting me to join this group for birth trauma. I didn't have a traumatic birth experience. And I'm glad that there's the options, and I'm glad that there are things for it, but I didn't have, I felt okay with mine. I don't have flashbacks. I'm good.
Mhm.
And so we have to be mindful that we don't put our own ideas, our own spin on it, and allow, whether it's a patient, a friend, whoever it is, to give their honest as to what they experienced.
Mhm. Mhm.
Ooh, that's a good point.
That's a really good point. That's a
Yeah.
really good point.
Yeah.
I do think we're at risk for doing that. I think it's just a matter of keeping the platform open for people to be transparent about their experiences, one
Right.
way or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally
I do
agree.
think go ahead, Karen.
No, I just said I totally agree with her.
Yeah, yeah. But Karen brought up a great question about birth plan, and I just want to invite everybody who's watching this video to follow us on the next video. Thank you for joining us this evening. Come on, Miss. Great topic for the next, or one of the next videos. Where can they find you, Karen?
You can find me at What a Touch on IG.
Awesome. And Dr. Trista dropping that bomb at the end. Where can they find you?
On IG at tristajob.dpt.
Awesome, awesome. And holding it up, making us have these amazing discussions. Come on, our mental health provider, Eunice, where can they find you? Oh,
At IG, just my name, EUNICE, DA therapist. Yeah, that's my handle. Thank you.
awesome, awesome. And our midwife helping our women out there having beautiful experiences. Where can they find you?
On Instagram at This American Midwife.
And I am Dr. T, the hand behind the handle of Healthy Bump Club. If you like this conversation, join us on the next one. Now you know one of our topics that's coming up, so you can't say that you weren't told. We hope to see you there. If not, follow us on Instagram. Don't forget that. Don't forget to like our videos, comment, share, subscribe. Ding. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when we post a new video. We love you guys for following. Have an amazing, amazing day. We'll talk to you guys on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
We love that you are a part of our community, and we want you to continue to be a part of our community. So go ahead and do what? Like the videos, hit notification, and subscribe. We appreciate you guys.